Hey, everybody, welcome to the Texas FBS College Football Countdown. This is week 9, and we're going to go through the top 13 teams in college football in the state of Texas, the greatest state, I believe, for football from high school all the way through college. A lot of things shook up this week, so there's a lot of changes. Do we have a new number one team? I don't know. We'll have to see. Texas finally got beat. We'll see who's number one, see what changed around there. But a lot of teams won, a lot of teams lost. Changes a lot of things, and I'm sure a lot of people will get mad. So I don't know how we'll do, but let's go through that. We're going to start our countdown. We do it every week. Let me do some explanations. Now that we're this far along into it, I am going to records are kind of going to go out the window. Now we're going to start to look at who I think could beat each other at a neutral field if they were playing each other. Who do I think would win? And sometimes that, because there's some teams that have beat other teams on this list, but now they may be below them in there just because of record that might play into effect if, in there, and we'll explain it as we go. But when it comes to ones, when you're trying to decide one way or the other, especially when we get up in the top 5 or top 3 and where we're at, you'd have to look at head to head. Okay, here we go. Let's get going. Let's go with number 13. Number 13 is the UTEP Miners, who have spent every week down at the bottom there. They come in again. They lost this week to Louisiana Tech 14-10. They're 1-7 on the season. They're coming up. They do have a bye week this week. They're not going to be playing this weekend. They come back November 2nd, where they're going to play MTSU. But, rough year, a closer game against Louisiana Tech, 14-10. I don't know that they'll come out of that coming forward. They are going to end up playing, they play Tennessee on November 23rd, which is probably going to be a bad one. We all know about that. But that's number 13. They stay at number 13. Let's go to number 12. Number 12 is the UTSA Roadrunners. They won this week. They won 38-24. Their record right now is 3-4. And, their record is better than Rice. But when you lose to Rice, like they did 29-27, and until Rice loses another game, which they're actually got a better record than Rice right now, they're going to stay at the number 12 team. This week they go and they play Tulsa. They're going to be at Tulsa this week, but I'm going to leave them at number 12 right now because they still have the head-to-head matchup. It'd be different if their one-loss differential was 3 or 4 games. If Rice was only win was that Rice had was against UTSA, and UTSA had some better wins. But right now, go UTSA at number 12. Now let's go to number 11. Number 11 is the Rice Owls. The Rice Owls are 2-5. This week they lost to Tulane 24-10. And now they're going to be heading out they're going to be playing UConn this week on the 26th at 2:30. It's going to be a CBS game. So look, Rice is probably going to lose that. UTSA is probably the better team, but when you've got a head-to-head matchup already, and it's in there, I'm going to leave it that way for this week. So I left Rice at number 11. But let's get into the top 10, where some things have really changed in the top 10. Number 10 is the Houston Cougars. The Houston Cougars lost to Kansas 42-14. I had them up at number 8 last week because of the big win at TCU. They won 30-19. They go to Kansas, lose 42-14. I'm moving them back down to number 10. I think that if they played TCU again, I think TCU would probably beat them. And the differential in records is just not there. I mean, I'm sorry, you're 2-5. The only good win you really have is against TCU. Your other win is against Rice, who's at the bottom. So I'm going to leave Houston at number 10. We're going to go to number 9. Number 9 is the UNT Mean Green Screaming Eagles. Look, last week we had them up there in the top. What did we have them last week? UNT last week was number 6. They moved down to number 9. They took a bad loss to Memphis, 52. It wasn't a bad loss, but they lost 52-44. The reason I moved them down, they're getting into the tougher part of their schedule. They've got Army coming up. UTSA is coming up. I mean, this is a team that has played far beyond what they normally are. Look, they stayed in the game with Memphis, but I start looking at head-to-head matchups now. And even though the UNT's 5-2, are they better than Texas Tech or Baylor or some of those that are within a game of them that I've had UT ahead of. No, they're really not ahead of them right now, but they could prove me wrong. They could prove me wrong. So UNT's number 9. Let's go to number 8. Number 8 are the Baylor Bears. The Baylor Bears jumped from number 10 to number 8 with a huge win over Texas Tech. And I mean a huge win. I mean, if anybody watched this game, Baylor was there was never any doubt who controlled that game, and they did that in Lubbock. They beat them 59-35. They were number 10 last week. Now they jump up to number 8 with the big win. I don't have Tech ahead of them yet. Tech's record is a lot better than theirs, and honestly, look, if Baylor's going to play like that and they're going to get going like that, they're going to easily jump Tech, especially in the head-to-head matchup. But there's too many wins and losses differential there. But impressive win by Baylor there to kind of put Texas Tech. This Joey McGuire's got to get a hold of that. You can't have these kind of losses. Everyone expected Texas Tech to beat Baylor in a down year like this, but Baylor just went up there and took care of business. Let's go to number 7. Number 7, we have the Texas State Bobcats. Texas State lost this week to Old Dominion. Right now, they are 5-2. This is a team that's played great all season long. They end up losing 24-14 to Old Dominion. Not a great loss there. A game that I think a lot of people, I thought that they would probably win that game, especially the way they had been playing. But you know what? That drops them down. We had them at last week. Texas State was number 7. And now we've got them staying the same with a loss. Some people jumped ahead of them and went below them. Texas State goes to number 7. Let's go to number 6. Number 6 is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They dropped from number 4 down to number 6 with a big loss to Baylor, 59-35. They've got TCU this weekend. I'd be interested to see what happens there. TCU could solidify my spot and why they moved up in the head-to-head, even though they had lost to Houston right here by going out and taking care of Baylor. Not Baylor, but taking care of Texas Tech. But they're going at TCU. Texas Tech comes down there. Joey's got to get this group in line here. But right now, I've got Texas Tech at number 6. They were number 4, but that's a big loss. Now let's go to the top 5. Number 5. Number 5 is the TCU Horned Frogs. They jump up. They make the biggest jump in our poll, going from number 9 to number 5. Big win over Utah. A lot of people had Utah winning the Big 12. Some of them talked about being in the top 4 there if they did win the Big 12. I know without Cam Rising, he's hurt. They're scuttling a little bit, but that you expect more out of Utah, especially going up to Utah. But TCU went up there. What a pretty game, but ended up winning that 13-7. Now they host Texas Tech this week, so TCU will have to see if they can keep the momentum going. But right now, at number 5, TCU made a jump. They go up to number 5. Let's go to number 4. Number 4, the Sam Houston Bearcats, who won again. They're 6-2 right now. They've got the 4th best record of anybody in here. They beat FIU, Florida International University, 10-7, and they play Louisiana Tech on the 29th, which is a weeknight game next week. They just continue to win games. I mean, and right now, I just took them. Do I think they could Sam Houston beat TCU? I don't know. That's close. Maybe not. But right now they're 6-2. TCU's 4-3. I'm going to give Sam Houston the nod right now. They've got Louisiana Tech coming up. Let's see what happens there. But if TCU beats Tech and Sam Houston wins next week also, we might see TCU be able to jump them. But right now I'm going to keep them at 6-2. Sam Houston, who pulled off a win, another ugly game, 10-7, but did pull off the win against FIU. Okay, guys, time to go to the top 3. Okay, we're getting into the top 3, and this is going to be nuts. A lot of you are going to throw a fit. I am a UT homer, never shied away from it. But when I look at the top 3, 2 of them are going to play each other. That's going to definitely make a difference in these picks once that happens. The other one's not going to play either one of them. And so I have to look at, on a neutral field, who do I think is better than the other teams on a neutral field? And that's what you look at. Not is would Texas be better against A&M on a neutral field? Of course. Is it going to be harder for them going into College Station? Of course. Could they lose that game? Absolutely, of course, they could lose that game. But right now, when you get into records, teams playing pretty well, you got to go into the head to head. But there's a reason why someone dropped, and that drop right now is Texas A&M dropping to number 3. Now I know all the Aggies rolled their eyes and probably clicked off of this right now to do that. That's fine. I don't get a ton of watches on these. These are just me venting, but I want to explain something to you. Connor Weigman is the reason that I'm doing this. First of all, do I think that A&M would beat SMU on a neutral field right now? I don't think they would. I got to be honest with you. If you've watched what SMU has done against some quality teams, and we'll go over their schedule in a little bit, SMU is rolling points right now. And I know that A&M has a good defense, but SMU has played some decent defense. And all I know is that if you're going to get in a shootout with a team, is Connor Weigman the guy that can do that? After this week against Mississippi State and the 34-24 win, which, by the way, I said they would at least win by 10. They did. I did not expect to see Connor Weigman play the way he did, and he did not play good. I don't care what anyone says. Now, does that take away from the fact the way he played against Missouri? It does in a way, because against Missouri, he was unreal. I mean, that Connor Weigman, it's unbelievable. That guy right there is a guy that looks like he could be a first-round draft pick. He sat in that pocket and picked apart, but now I'm starting to think of something that may have come into play in this and why he did so well against Missouri and not against Mississippi State. Against Missouri, let's be honest, a top 10 team. This was one of the teams that people thought could win the SEC. Against Missouri, a lot of people thought A&M could beat Missouri at home because it's tough to beat A&M at home. But they also, what they thought was that Marcel Reed was going to be the quarterback. And everyone thought if Marcel Reed's playing, maybe A&M, but if it's Connor Weigman, there's no way A&M would win. Well, Connor Weigman proved everybody wrong. Hats off to Mike Elko, who went with who he thinks is his quarterback and gives him the best chance. And he went with Connor Weigman. Now, Connor Weigman comes into that game against Missouri, and Missouri was not prepared for a quarterback to throw the way Connor Weigman can throw. Connor Weigman had all the time in the world. He had great protection up front. They had a running game that they established against Missouri. And before Missouri could make any sort of adjustment, they were freaking in the down. I mean, they were down. I mean, Texas went up, kicked them in the nuts, in the face, and threw them to the ground before they had a chance to breathe and adjust their chin strap, and just took off, and Missouri never had a chance. That was an impressive win, and an impressive win because of how Connor Weigman played. And so you had to give them hats off. Then a whole week of Mississippi State going, Connor Weigman is going to be the quarterback for Texas A&M. They adjusted, and look, when Marcel Reed's in there, that's a guy that can threaten to run. And so Missouri had probably someone, their plan was to play back, make him throw the ball to beat them, and not put pressure on him because of the way he could move and what he could do when he could scramble and do something with his legs. They didn't think Connor Weigman could do that, and so they got picked apart. Mississippi State said, okay, let's apply pressure and make Weigman beat us, try to stop the run. And I'm going to tell you right now, the running game's what saved A&M, because they were able to get some running game going. But what Weigman didn't do was pick them apart, and he didn't look impressive. 2 times that they've put pressure on Connor Weigman was against Notre Dame, and Mississippi State did it also. And I got to tell you right now, he wasn't fantastic. Now, in the same respect of that, neither was Quinn Ewers. But we'll talk about Ewers and his game in a little bit. If SMU played A&M on a neutral field, I personally think SMU could win that game. I really do. Because A&M scores, SMU, their offense is unreal. What Lashley's done with that offense, look at the amount of points they've scored, and we'll go over that in a second since they're number 2. But you would get in a shootout, and in a shootout right now, I don't know that Connor Weigman can win a shootout right now, especially the way SMU is putting up points. Yes, A&M has a good defense. It's not a great defense. It's a good defense, but not a great defense. And when you're playing from behind and scoring quickly, and you get that offense, if the offense isn't scoring right back, or controlled drives, it gets that defense tired having to chase SMU around because, man, they have played some good offense. That brings us to number two. Number two is the SMU Mustangs. Now, I know the Aggies are still complaining about it being the SMU Mustangs, but have you seen what SMU has done? SMU is, I mean, the lowest points that SMU has scored was against BYU. They lost 18-15 to BYU. They have scored 29, 59, 66 against TCU, 42 against Florida State. I don't care who you are. Florida State looked at their schedule this year, looked at the SMU game and said, that's a win. That's what they said. Or that's where we get back on track. Nobody had SMU beating Florida State, and especially beating them by close to 30 points, 42-16. They beat Louisville, the ranked team, the one ranked team they played, and they beat them 34-27. It's a great win. Then they beat Stanford. Stanford's down. They're not good. But Stanford is a much bigger and more storied program than SMU, unless you go back to the Pony Excess days, and they beat Stanford. Boy, they rolled them. They beat Stanford 40-10 right there. They've got Duke this week, which should be another win. They're probably going to win that game against Duke. They're going at Duke. This will be their third road game in a row that they're going to play this weekend. But SMU, they're atop the AC. They're undefeated in ACC. Now let me be honest. So is A&M. A&M's undefeated in ACC. They're not going to stay undefeated in the SEC, but they're not going to stay undefeated. Whether it's LSU, which I do think A&M can win the LSU game, I don't see A&M beating Texas right now. We'll see. Look, Texas is still number one. We'll go to that in just a second, but hats off to SMU, and this could totally change this week, and I'm going to tell SMU right now, I don't care what you do to Duke. I don't care what you do to Duke. If you're going to be upset, you're going to be upset. Because if A&M beats LSU, not only are they going to jump you, depending on what Texas does in their game against Vanderbilt, A&M has a case to be number one in the state of Texas if they beat LSU, which they could. And depending on what, if Texas goes out and boat races Vandy, who has been unbelievable, a storied team and a top 25 win. If they barely win that game and A&M wins, it'll be something to think about. Although I'd still think Texas is the better team, and I'm a homer, I admit that, but you can't argue that A&M is not at least number two and maybe number one if they beat LSU this week. So SMU, don't cry. That brings us to number one. Number one is the UT Texas Longhorns, who played horrible. What a horrible game. And let me give you anybody that knows me on any social medias that follow me with the Texas Rangers, know whatever that I do with DLLS Sports. The call against Georgia for the interception that got called a pass interference was a horrible call. I think everyone, I don't care who you root for, looked at it and go, that was not pass interference. The call to overturn it was even a bigger blunder by SEC. I don't care. I know it favored and the right call ended up happening, but nobody in the world can argue that Texas fans acting like idiots did not help change that call because of the delay. And they started watching on that board and they saw that they had blown that call and they wanted to make it right. That's not how football works, guys, unfortunately. Look, I'm actually happy that Texas, I'm not happy, of course, but what I'm saying is I'm glad it didn't make a difference in the game. I'm glad that Georgia ended up winning that game and won it by 15 points. I'm glad about that because everyone can argue and complain about that, but if Texas come back and won that game, Georgia fans would have every right in the world to be throwing a fit over that call being overturned. And even as a Texas fan, I would be going, well, you better back it up now because it certainly looked like because people acted like idiots, you got that call. And I'm sorry, I am a guy, when your team makes a mistake and they lose, they lose. That's the way it goes. You got your ass kicked by Georgia, and you got your ass kicked. Georgia came into that game ready to play. Texas defense, this is a reason I still have them number one. Texas defense played amazing in that game. Well, John, they lost 30-15. I don't care that they lost 30-15. Do you know where Georgia got the ball? They got the ball on the 9. They got the ball on the 23. They got it on the 30. They were getting the ball way down in their area, and they were getting points out of it. But, boy, Texas defense stood in there and kept them. there was only one drive, the one drive that after the blunder of a call and Texas scored. Texas had Georgia down, third and 10, down in their own end, and it certainly looked like, oh my God, this whole game might be turning um, right there. And oh my God, what a play to get out of that! They took that drive and made the drive all the way down. Uh, God, I guess it was about a 90-yard drive from there, something like that. That was the drive that killed it. Just a second. Um, Anyway, but if you look at numbers that happened on there, Beck made that play. He scrambled. He made that play and got him down there to score. Um, Carson Beck was outplayed by Quinn Ewers. Now, when I said about Weigman earlier, when I talked about Weigman earlier and about the pressure and how he responded to the pressure, I have to be honest. Like I was honest about the pass interference call. Quinn Ewers was rattled. They got in his face. Quinn Ewers has had some big wins against big teams. There's no getting around that. He played great against Alabama last year to beat Alabama. He played great against Michigan. Of course, Michigan's not as good as everybody thought they were, but I don't care. You go into the big house, and he picked them apart, played a great game. They put pressure on him. He did well. Georgia came in with something completely different, came after him, and Quinn Ewers got rattled. I mean, just flat out got rattled and looked bad. He came back that second half, though, threw for 2 touchdowns, threw for 199 yards. And what he did, he showed signs of the Quinn Ewers that a lot of us know about. I have no issue with what Sarkisian did, putting in Manning at the end of that first half just to see if they could spark something. Afterwards, when he said Quinn Ewers is still our quarterback, I have no doubt about it. But I will tell you this: I can tell you right now, going forward, every game is a must-win for Texas. And in that situation, if Ewers struggles again and he goes to Manning, I'm sure Manning is taking more first-team snaps. There's not going to be a controversy right now. Right now, this is Ewers' team, and Ewers gives them the best chance to win until he doesn't. And right now, I think I have no issue with it. I mean, Sarkisian is a quarterback savant, and I just really think that although Manning has the legs that are a lot better and also can throw the better deep ball and do that, I'd still think that Ewers just has more experience back there to do that. Now, with that being said, he's got to perform, and he didn't. And boy, the playbook's been laid out. If you can get pressure on Quinn Ewers, maybe there's a problem. They've got to, Sark does these plays that develop so late. He tries to do these long developing plays with the throwbacks and the screens and different looks and all of that. And when you got a team that is beating your tackles and getting to your quarterback, you got to stop with the BS. You got to start getting the ball out quicker. So the playbook's there. Look, A&M's got a team that can do that. I think Vanderbilt's in for a long day. And I think that because I love Diego Pavia. I think he's one of the best stories. And he's like a Johnny Manziel, the way he has just taken the team on his back, beating Alabama, almost beat Missouri. I mean, this guy is, I don't care who you are, it's unbelievable what he is doing. Can they, can Vanderbilt beat Texas? Yeah. I mean, they really can. We saw they beat Alabama. Now, I think Texas is a better team than Alabama, and I think they're a better team than Vanderbilt. And I think that, unfortunately for Pavia, the defense that Texas brings to the game and the athletes they have on the team, they are not going to look past Vanderbilt. I think the worst thing in the world for Vanderbilt was that Georgia beat Texas, because Texas now has to focus, because it's been so easy to beat Georgia, pump your chest out. We're now the number one team. Nobody can argue with it. And then go in, and Vanderbilt could have did what they did to Alabama. They have the ability to do it. They're well coached. They are very well coached. But I don't think so. I just don't think they have the athletes. And Texas is well coached too. And I think that Texas is going to go in there, and I think it might be ugly. And I just think the reason being is that because I think Texas can get out ahead and stop Pavia a couple times, get out ahead 14, maybe 20 points, and then you put a team on its heels where it's got to try to go for it. It's got to try to catch up because they start getting down, and that's where more mistakes happen. And I think with Texas ends and linebackers being fast enough to keep Pavia somewhat in check and chase him down because they do have the speed to do that. I think that's where that's going to be the problem on it. Anyway, guys, that's it. That's the top 10, the top 13 FBS for Texas. Lots of fun. I know a lot of you are throwing a fit right now and thinking that how dare I choose them? But hey, that's why we do this. We'll do it next week. Have fun. Until then, see you later. Oh, that was a giggle, wasn't it?